his words. And it's just this kind of idea of just living a lifestyle that people look at and can go, yeah, man, that guy's squared away. He's going to do the right thing. And it's not because I necessarily beat you over the head with the Bible or at every opportunity talk about Jesus or, any of those things, because I don't do any of those things. I try to live my life to the best of my ability in accordance with my values. And eventually, if I'm doing those things right, you'll ask me, hey, why is it that when the guys go out getting drunk, you don't go? And I go, well, because I don't believe in that. It's unproductive. It's destructive, whatever the story is, right? Why don't you go do drugs with everybody else? Well, because that's not what I do. That's not inside my value system. And it's, very unproductive. And then I've found that when people ask me for the answers, they're far more likely to receive what I have to say versus if I try to force my answer on you without your permission first, you're probably going to shut me off. And so I've just made that kind of my style of living. So like if you go to my Facebook lives or you look at my posts, you really won't see much about what I believe or my value system, because what I'm trying to do is to represent that through my actions.
Sure.
And then hopefully people take notice of that and then begin to ask me questions.
Yeah. And that's a good perspective on it, because, when we are living our beliefs, then people will, if they don't have that, are going to ask. They're going to want to know, okay, what makes you different? What's giving you the joy and the purpose that you have? You're different than I am, and I want some of that. And that's a much stronger way of doing it than trying to pound it into somebody, because that's not going to achieve anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So since we're both past the 30-year mark, I'll put it. I'll shoot that. What's something that you wish you had done earlier in your life that you didn't do?
Oh my God, man! Do we have another hour? There's so many. Yeah, so I just do a couple of quick things. The first thing is when I was young and in the Army, I was young and not a believer and did a bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have done. And I would have actually done a whole life insurance policy from the age of 18 forward. That had been the first thing I did. The other things I would have done is I would have cut out all the excessive drinking I did in the Army and invested that money in the market. So I was drinking about $400 away a weekend. If I just look back and I go, man, if I'd just taken that and invested it instead, I'd probably be a millionaire by now. So,
yeah.
And then I think the other thing is that I've learned some really hard lessons about character and evaluating other people's character. And when I go back and I look at my younger years, I could have really saved myself a lot of heartache, both relationally and professionally, if I had just looked at people's character up front. And I don't say that in a judgmental aspect, but, if you've got unresolved issues in your life, that stuff's going to come back up later on and it's going to cause consequences. And when I look at that stuff, even from a business perspective, I'd have been so much further ahead in my life if I wouldn't have just brushed things off as, well, that's just what that guy does, or that's just what that girl does. And it's not a big deal. It doesn't affect my opinion of how to live life. But if I'd have looked back on it, it would have made a big difference, I think.
Yeah. And, as the teaching, in Scripture mentions, you know people by their fruits. And so that's kind of the thing that, I've learned, similar to you, that, certain people that you probably should not have hung out with, you'll know people by their fruit. It's, if their fruit is spoiled and rotten, then, the person is too. And we should take that to heart.
Trust
your gut.
Yeah.
So what kind of hurdles, since, we're both veterans, and so, we had our transitioning, struggles that we probably both went through. How did you overcome those transitioning hurdles, and, what did you do to overcome it?
Well, the first thing is I when I got out, I realized that everything the military had told me about transitioning was full of crap. So I dumped everything the Army told me, and it got really exposed to me right out of the gate. So when I was in the Army, I was kind of a hard charger. I went to Airborne School, Ranger School, Air Assault School, EOB. I was doing all that kind of stuff, right? And everybody told me, man, when you get out, your resume will look so good. People will want to hire you, blah, 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 blah. Your leadership skills that you've learned in the Army, all this stuff, right? So, when I got out, I wrote a resume, and on my resume, I put that I was a graduate of Ranger School, put my class date, and, et cetera. And then when I went in for my interview, the guy was reviewing my resume with me, and he goes, "So what forest did you work in?" And I was like, "Forest? The hell are you talking about?" He goes, "What forest did you work in?" I'm like, "I never worked in any forest. That's not in my resume. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, it says you're a U.S. Ranger." And I was like, yeah, man, that's a school in the Army. He's like, "Oh, so you never really worked in a forest?" And I'm just like, oh my God, everything they told me in the Army is false. These people have no clue what we do, and it just kind of woke me up to the reality that truly the civilian world does not understand a veteran, and a veteran is probably going to have a very hard time connecting with the civilian world. So I just dumped it all. I was like, man, if I'm going to figure this out, I can't believe what they told me when I was getting out. Just that was a big surprise for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our brothers and sisters in transitioning now are still going through that. Is learning how do you translate one life into the civilian life? How do you translate what you did in the service into the civilian world? Because the two are so different that you have to. It's almost like you're speaking two different languages. You have to know how to translate one language into the other language so that the listener is able to say, "Oh, that's what that means." Because as you're mentioning, Ranger meant nothing to him. You mention that to a serviceman, and they're like, "Hey, they get it."
Right.
What you went through. And it's like, man, he is gung ho, but civilian, like, huh? During the headlines.
They really don't get it. And it's even so. I served from 1993 to 96, so I'm not a combat veteran, even though I've been to Afghanistan twice. And then you up this a level and you talk about the current veterans today who have been to 7, 9, 10. I've got friends that have been deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, or Africa 15 and 20 times. So if you think that just being a veteran is a disconnect, now you're a combat veteran. Think about that disconnect. You've gone through stuff that nobody in the civilian world could imagine. Like they cannot just put themselves in that mindset, and so that's even a further stretch.
No, it's not like the movies they see on TV. They're
nothing.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
So when you were coming up with the answers on how you did that transition, and then I guess even going into starting your businesses, maybe kind of talk me through how you made that step. When you're starting your business, what did it look like?
So I am the worst person in the world to talk to about this, and I'll tell you why. Because I got punched in the face for a living, so I'm not quite the smartest guy on the block. I'm just stubborn enough to make stuff happen. And I just saw something I wanted to do, and I just kept doing it regardless of how many times I got punched in the face and made it work. So there are smarter ways to do business than what I did. There like legitimately is. I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but don't follow my footsteps, man. I made it far more painful than what it had to be, so, and I'm still kind of that stubborn guy that, just kind of goes, I want to do this and I'm going to put my head down and freaking push through until I make it work. And there's just much easier and smarter ways to do it. So, like when I got out of the Army, I started professionally fighting because I just wanted to fight. I had no clue that was going to be a business. But I got paid to do it, and I trained myself. I connected with the people that could take me to the next level and started making money fighting. And And then got some internships at some companies as a 1099. And, there was just so many ways that I could have done that better. So, but it was pioneering. Nobody was fighting at the way we see it now.
Now, as far as going from that into what you're currently doing with the travel curation and the travel hacking, let's talk about sort of that for a moment, because that's a huge shift from from professional fighting.
Yeah, it's a huge shift, and so here's kind of what happened. So I've been contracted with the military for almost the last 20 years, training them how to fight. So I still get punched in the face in the morning on occasion, even as an old guy. And my body is kind of starting to break down, because I've been doing it for 20 years. I've been fighting for over 20 years. And I just knew that I needed an exit strategy because I can't do this forever. And so as I looked at it, I looked at what made me successful with this. And it was really because it's my passion and my love. So I was like, okay, so what do I love to do? What are the things that I enjoy that I can monetize? And the Army, incidentally, caused me to begin to move in this direction. So in 2016, they told me that, hey, we've had a shift in mission, and we're going to need you to start traveling more, probably, 12 times a year or so. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So my only overhead when I do this for the Army is my actual travel. So if I can decrease the cost of my travel, that means more money in my pocket and everybody's happy. So it started me on a journey of learning how to get travel more affordably. And as I traveled more, and I had traveled a lot as a fighter, I had fought in Japan 3 times, Argentina, Venezuela, I was all over the world. I realized, man, I would really love to travel a lot more. And so the barrier that everybody faces is if you want to travel more, you've got to have money freedom so you can have time freedom to actually do what you want to do. And I said, well, what if I can find a way to decrease the cost of travel and give everybody the freedom to travel more? And it's been a 2-year journey to get to where I am now, to have learned the things I've learned. But I think I did it better than what I did with fighting. I didn't take nearly as many lumps. And now I've just learned how to monetize it to do the things that I love to do and to get paid to do it. So that's kind of the very abridged version of how I went from being a fighter to a contracted independent contractor for the military who trains people how to fight, to now still doing that because I own that company, to now traveling.
So with the travel curation, some people may not even know what that means. Maybe you can kind of explain, a bit about that, because that's
sure.
That's part of what you're doing now.
Yeah. So curation is basically this. I field questions from people that I generate, and I go, if I were to put together a military experience for 3 days with barracks, machine guns, and explosives, and high-speed car chases and demolition, would you be interested? And you'll either say yes or no based on whatever that activity is, right? And if I get enough people who say yes, I go, hey, typically, and I don't even know what the numbers is, I just pulled this out of my hat, but let's say that number is $1,000 for 3 days. But if I get 30 people to do it, I could cut it down to, let's say, 750. So I come back to you and I go, hey, man, I got that thing down to 750. Can I count on you? If we can get 30 guys together, they'll cut me a great deal. What's your answer?
Yeah.
Of course. You just saved me $250, right? So, and I call this travel hack the power of the crowd. If I gather people around in an experience or an idea that they all want to do but probably couldn't afford to do or wouldn't be comfortable doing on their own, and I can get them a deal, they're going to buy. That's what I do. And I do it all the way from whitewater rafting to our next events in San Diego, where We're going to have a party on top of the USS Midway, which is an aircraft carrier, a Top Gun party, followed by